tuning in to another episode of the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast, but actually, this is Lighting the Void on Fringe FM, or rather, a couple weeks ago, I was on Fringe FM with Joe Rupe, past guest on the show, owner of Fringe FM, host of Lighting the Void, and he was nice enough to invite me on as a guest. So since it hasn't come out on his feed yet, I figured I'd beat him to the punch and post it here for you guys to check out. So enjoy this episode of Lighting the Void featuring yours truly. And be sure to go over to the Patreon, because this has been on the Patreon for a week now. So if you sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/MFTIC, you get sneak previews, early releases, you get all kinds of bonus content. We'll see you there. Peace out.
If it's your first time listening to the show, thank you wherever you're listening from across the World Wide Web, whether that's on the Fringe FM, the Fringe FM app, TuneIn, TalkStream Live, the Paranormal Radio app, or anywhere else. We love you. The call-in number for tonight's 1-800-588-0335. And we got a pretty special guest coming on tonight. Mark Steves is here with us, an audio producer. He works in the audio field. He's also a personal friend of mine. And, look, I'll just introduce you here. He's a cool dude. He's got a podcast called My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, which, if you think about it, in the name of all that you believe in, does your family think you're crazy? I know mine does. Anyways, if you want to go to lightingthevoid.com to support this show, become a deep void walker, get access to all the archives, over 730 episodes, commercial free, plus access to the magic audios, which I'm moving it all to the website. I'm getting away from Patreon. They censor people, so it's all going to go to the website. Patreon is now like they're censoring more people. I don't understand it. And it's all this whole censor bullshit. But anyways, it's happening. So everybody get ready to make the switch to the membership site. And if you haven't signed up, do so. And if you want to donate, you can go to fringe.fm/donations. And that'll get a donation out to the radio station as well as the show too. So it kind of, since we run both here, it kind of supports both. All right. So, don't forget about the event that we're having. Contact at the Cabin, the magical event with Grimerica. We'll be there. Well, I'll be there with Owen Hunt and Brandon Powell and the Grimerica crew, February 10th through the 13th. If you hadn't got a ticket, get one. They're selling out right now. So, make sure you go check that out too. The website for our guest tonight is myfamilythinksimcrazy.com. And here's the thing. Mark Steves is here with us. And does your family think you're crazy? So does his. So on his podcast, his name is Mark Palmer Steves. And with his friends, he discusses out-of-the-box concepts with people who take the road less traveled. Bizarre events, conspiracy, mystery, intrigue, spiritual, paranormal, supernatural, all that stuff. Pretty much the same thing we talk about on this show. It's good to have you, Mark. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Dude, this is a long time coming, and I appreciate it. This is going to be fun. I could already tell you're a pro. My mom was excited when I said I was going to be on radio, so I'm excited too. And yeah, man, wow, it's an honor to be here. And yeah, My Family Thinks I'm Crazy is the show that I've created over the past almost a year now. It'll be a year in October this next month, so I'm excited for our first year anniversary. We just had Graham Dunlop on the show, who you're going to be with down there at the CAC, the Contact at the Canyon, I think it is, right?
Everybody show up to the CAC.
Right on. Yeah.
Like, it's going to be fun for sure.
Yeah, and we talked.
Dude, you better go, man. What's up? Like, you need to go.
What date is that again? Remind me.
February the 10th through the 13th. I'm
Wow.
gonna put you on the spot right now.
I have no reason not to go with that much time to plan it. So we'll see.
We'll get you in there. We'll squeeze. Even if all the tickets sell out, which they might, because they sell out these things every single time. Apparently, these hangouts are like the coolest things you can go to, which is cool, right? Because that's what we all do. We all end up going to these big conferences and stuff, and nobody really gets to connect. In Grimerica, they're like trendsetters, man. They set trends, and they're like, well, we'll just do events and have small get-togethers, and they've been killing it with that stuff. So.
Yeah, value for value. They've been doing a lot of stuff. The audio books, I mean, everything they do is unique. They got their own thing going on over there. I was just talking to David Matheson, who was at the last Contact at the Canyon. He was on my show, the Synchro Mystic Exploration of the Ever Expanding Now. Cool. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I think that's just like the theme with the whole group of people who've been on the Grimerica show, at least in my experience.
Yeah, well, I think we talk about a lot of the same stuff. It's a pretty cool time as we move into autumn. Last night was the harvest moon. Now we're still in the harvest moon. We're moving into the equinox. Tomorrow night, Jeff Harmon's going to be on the program, astrologer and spiritual cleanser, and talk a little bit about that stuff during the equinox, right? But this is a good time to do some cleansing, right? Get rid of all the bad juju. I like lit like 10 black candles in here just to suck up all the negative energy. And then you go around and light a white one. And then you say, Guni Goo Goo, and it all goes away, That's all magic is. You don't even have to do anything. You just say Guni Goo Goo and it's done,
Is that your own catchphrase, or is that from some ancient voodoo cult?
No, that's something Eddie Murphy made up back in the 80s, but I still was thinking, of something ridiculous. But so I want to talk about the topics of tonight because I feel like your show kind of represents something that I'm all about, and it's staying true to yourself, right? When you stay true to yourself, it doesn't matter how weird, how strange, how complex, how stupid other people may think you are, whatever, right? You have to stay true to yourself and go on your own journey. I think, honestly, comparison is the law of the comparison. If you compare yourself to anybody or anything, you're going to cause massive suffering in your life, man. Like I'm not saying that's like an ultimate teaching, but it definitely is a fundamental thing, right? Jesus, dude, you're a tall sumbitch. Anybody ever tell you that?
Well, how can you tell? Just from my arm reaching out?
Just from your arm reaching out. Like, I'm Jesus, man. And you used to wrestle, huh?
I'm 6'8" for those at home.
You're a nightmare for guys like me.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, even in jiu-jitsu, like I could take on, dude, in jiu-jitsu, I swear, I could grapple. I grappled with this guy that won a strongman contest and tapped him out, right? Okay. But we had a dude his name was, what was his name? He lived down the road from me. Anyways, he was tall, lanky dude, right? Like we went at it so much. I was like his nightmare and he was like my nightmare.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty good match when we grappled all the time. So
yeah, why do you think they eradicated all those Nephilim and giants from all the different continents? You guys couldn't mess with us.
Yeah. I mean, big, tall, lanky people make the best grapplers, the best wrestlers, and the best jiu-jitsu guys, for sure. Every time, and they do a lot of stuff naturally. So,
well, I will say, my martial arts training, I focused on the moves that took that advantage. Like I would go for a lot of kicks. I love doing kicks, and then when it comes to groundwork, leg locks, anytime you can get the hooks in with your legs, you get for lanky people out there who wrestle and do jiu-jitsu, which is a small audience. Yeah, you got an advantage there for sure. But yeah, man, honestly, when it comes to all the stuff Fringe, everything in that realm, martial arts really was, I think, crucial to being able to get as far as I've gone in understanding a lot of these concepts, because it teaches you a certain amount of discipline to stick with something and you know, some of these books, as you can find, some that are behind me, it take a lot of, you know, patience to get through, especially some of the older books, you know, written in a certain context that might not be obvious, or written with a certain style that's not around anymore. And so, yeah, getting into all these topics, you know, I think, and that's something I've noticed just, you know, talking to all these different people, booking for Sam Tripoli's podcast, you know, there's a lot of martial artists or people who have at least done some form of martial arts who also happen to be into these topics or just conspiracies in general.
Yeah, Sam's a trip, man. I remember when I got on this show, thanks to you, I was talking, and we were talking about astral travel, and he kept calling it I want to try out this astro travel, man. That's what he's saying. I'm going to get into this. I need to see if he actually tried it, though.
You know, back in February, I know he went to the float lab. So I don't know if you've ever done the sensory deprivation tanks, but he has experienced that.
I have, but not like the ones they have. No. So, yeah. So you're talking about float lab that Crash runs in California or whatever.
No, well, it might be a franchise now, but he was in New Jersey when this happened, so it might be like another, because I'm sure there's other companies that do the same thing. But yeah, it was essentially like that, if not that company.
Yeah, so have you had an out-of-body experience, Mark?
Well, yeah, in this house that I'm in right now, I have, like, just kind of laying on the floor one day, really relaxed. I felt myself going up towards the ceiling, and as soon as I saw what was happening, I had that moment of awareness that just snapped me right back into my body. And since then, no, other than like some strange whiteouts, I'll call them, because they weren't quite blackouts, no, I've never had an out-of-body experience. Definitely memorable dreams, though. That's a big part of my life recently, like some strange dreams that seem to not foretell things, but like hint at things that then happen. Like, for example, somebody who I've gotten to know really well recently is Michael Wan from the Susquehanna Alchemy podcast. Awesome. Yeah, and now it's a podcast. It's also a YouTube channel and a book that he's put out called The Rights of the 40th Parallel. And yeah, getting to know him has been really interesting. And one day I stayed at his house, and a week before that I had a dream of like a black snake with a red belly. And I wake up that morning after staying at his place, you know, traveling through PA. It's kind of far from where I live. And he's like, oh, I got a podcast, you know, why don't you go for a hike down to the river? So I go for a walk down the river, and sure enough, I see that same snake that I saw in my dreams. So I've had a couple of little things like that where, you know, something seems to be going on. Haven't quite gotten a full grasp of it, though. I think the more, you know, I've done acid, I've done mushrooms, but I just, they were never out of body. And I think that had something to do with like circumstance, but definitely I've had mystical experiences, but no, not out of body.
Well, I'm digging your website. I see a section on your website that says favorite podcast I've been on. I have no idea why I'm not on. Wait, you're just now on this podcast, right? But I see an episode you did called "The Black Magic Legacy" of Aleister Crowley. So yeah. I can tell you might be one of those closet Crowley fans who really understands Crowley but doesn't want to explain yourself to everybody, not fully, but you will stick up for him every now and then, right?
Well, I definitely stuck my neck out in a way on that interview that you're referring to. And Sam, to bring him back up, he definitely is someone who's in the like Crowley sucks, nothing good comes from him camp. And that's fair. I think that's a fair perspective in light of everything that happened in the past 2 years with the Epstein stuff and realizing that he might have been an influence in that whole realm in some shape or form. But yeah, I'll say, you know, I have down here.
You got all those books, huh? You got the book 4?
Yeah, this one. And, you know, it's really, it's a strange story because when I bought it, it was probably the most expensive book I'd ever bought online at that point in my life. So I was like just a little nervous, as you might be when it's coming in the mail. Like, is this going to be a scam? Like, what's going on with this? I can't. So there's a lot of anticipation. So I was so excited to read it that I took it to work with me, and I was working at a cafe, and, you know, I'm just working, serving coffees, no big deal. This is a stupid job, one of the many jobs I had at this point in my life that I was doing every week. And this guy walks in, didn't look completely homeless, but there's something strange about him, like he hadn't showered in a while or something. So I got like a homeless vibe from him. And in that town, New Haven, there's a lot of homeless people, so it would make sense. So he doesn't sit down and order something. He sits down and, you know, just pulls out what looks like a Bible, and turned out it was. And he pulls out these two like electric candles, you know, the type with a little switch underneath, and you kind of turn them on. So he has these little candles, he has a Bible, and he's like writing, scribbling in between the lines in this Bible. And I'm thinking to myself, I brought this book to work with me today, of all days, like just randomly, you know, and this happens, you know. And at first I didn't really make the connection, but then, you know, I go and assert myself like, hey man, what's going on? Do you need anything? Cause you got to order something if you want to sit at this table. You know, homeless people would do that a lot, come in and just try to waste time inside. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to order a coffee. Give me a minute. So I'm like, okay, all right. Chill out, I'm just asking. So I go back to the counter and I wait for him to come over. He comes over all mad and he's like, do you know who I am? He's like, I'm the son of Charles Manson and the grandson of Aleister Crowley. And he's like going on this whole schizophrenic. Yeah.
Does he really believe that? He really believes it.
He's going on this whole schizophrenic rant, you know, like about, but just the fact that he mentioned, you know, Aleister Crowley, I'm like, what? You know, like, how does this happen the day that I bring this crazy huge book into this cafe?
Man, it's part of it.
Right.
It's part of it, bro.
Right. And it felt like a warning.
Loop now. You can't do nothing about it.
It felt like a warning, honestly. And I think I proceeded with caution from there. And, you know, I found other books of Crowley's that I would never pay for or own. And I just left them where they were at the bookstore, because there's some dark stuff that he gets into that I'm not like, I don't think I need that in my life. Not that I'm not interested in understanding it. I think that's a big reason why I talked about it in the first place.
Like, dude, some of the stuff that he did, he talks about is profoundly diabolical. I'm just saying, in my opinion, you know. Anytime you're cursing people, like, that's bad to me. Yeah, I think you can. So, and this is like what I'm doing my next lesson on it with the members is about energy, because that's basically what this is all about, right? You can read Franz Barden's book and you really start to understand this is all about the psyche and energy. So, but, you know, you can protect your energy. You can do things like mirrors or just circle protections and stuff like that, and it doesn't hurt anybody. It's still like love kind of magic, you know. But the second you start like getting into magic battles or trying to hurt people, and in my opinion, some people don't agree with me on this, but I do, specifically like casting spells to get with people or have people get with you or break up other people, just anytime you try to screw with somebody's will other than your own and your connection to the universe, I think you're doing it bad. The karma of it never turns out good. Never.
Right. Well, it reminds me of something that I read that's always stuck with me. It's like the magic rule of 3. You know, everything you put out comes back to you times 3. So if you put out curses, that's gonna come back to you times 3. If you put out goodness and good-hearted spells, or however you want to raise your energy and put that back out in the universe, if it's for good reasons, even if it's just like your own, which I think honestly isn't very productive. I think like the real secret is like the universe helps those who help others. You know, I think that's pretty obvious. And a lot of these, you know, these humanitarians, they just front like they're helping others in order to maintain their 1%er status, you know, put themselves out there.
Well,
but
yeah.
you know, in a real like common sense kind of way, you can see if you live your life that way, if you smile at people, people smile back more at you. You know, if you keep your head up high and look people in the eye and say hi to them, you get into more positive interactions than you would if you walked around with your, you know, looking at your shoes and bumping into people, you know. And I think that's kind of you know, being on the East Coast, that might not always be the case. In a place like New York City or Boston, you know, people are kind of rough. But in most places, I think that's like a kind of, you know, maybe it's cheesy, cliche, law of attraction stuff, but it is true.
Yeah. Chance has got a picture. I think it's the coolest graphic I've ever seen anybody put up. He's got this graphic of this witch girl in like a garters and sexy outfit, and he says, "My hot witch wife," and it shows this dude laying in the middle of a pentagram circle that says, "Me doing whatever the hell she wants."
Uh-oh.
Well, I was going to get to that. The best kind of magic, I think, is co-creative, right? So, like, if you're in a love partnership with somebody, man, you're not going to get more powerful than that. I promise you. There's nothing that you can get more powerful than that. And see, this is what Crowley, I believe, he tried to tap into with all this concubines and all this other stuff. But his true heart, he walked away from. He walked away from his true heart while he was doing magic, and then that part of his life fell apart. So it's a little bit like people just dive into this stuff. And I always tell them, like, man, I'm one of the most impulsive, probably fast, passionate, moving cardinal type dudes there is, right? But with magic, I believe, especially if you're going down a ceremonial path in an alchemical way, I believe you better step slowly and step right, you know.
Slow and steady wins the race, man. And those, you know, those myths and legends and little folk tales, those were written by dudes who were initiated into this type of stuff. You know, even like, you know, C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. I was just listening to a Mysterious Universe episode today. They were talking about how Tolkien, have you ever heard this about Tolkien? How he was basing a lot of his stuff that he was writing in the Lords of the Rings off of old books that he was finding in the basement at Oxford in like Scandinavian and Finnish. And, you know, that's so interesting considering, I don't know if they made this connection on Mysterious Universe. I'm not a member of their Plus thing, so maybe they got into it then, but the Box Saga. Have you heard of the Box Saga before? And this whole story of Eeyore Bach and this guy, Jim Chestner, happened to get the... So for those who don't know, the Bakshagi Saga is allegedly this true origin story of humankind passed down from father to son. And Eeyore Bach, a man named Eeyore Bach, was the last inheritant of this oral tradition. And he passed it on to someone who wasn't in his family because, you know, I guess he didn't have a son or whatever it was.
Who told you this again? Where did you find out about this?
This was through Jim Chestner, who was on the Higher Side Chats. But I had a gentleman on my show named Dan who has a podcast called the Rising from the Ashes podcast, and he considers himself, you know, someone who researches Box Saga and knows a fair bit.
Tell me the story. I didn't mean to stop you there.
No, it's okay. It's fine. I think that's important, you know, cite your sources, because you know, people should go and listen to it for themselves and hear it from Jim himself. But you know, it's basically a story about the origins of humankind from this perspective of Finland and Helsinki, and how, you know, things get inverted, and the term hell actually was like the place where, you know, was kind of like an Atlantean type story, you know, and it was lost, you know, from the Goths and the Romans and all these different groups that were in Europe. They basically hid this from us, but it remained up in, you know, the northern parts of Europe. And there's so many little details, and it's kind of like a syncretism type thing where they'll show you words that we still use today and how they were, you know, had a different meaning in ancient times. So it's a lot of syncretistic type of linguistic stuff, but it's also very interesting when you consider the Tolkien connection and how he might have been reading some of the same stuff. I mean, I might be the only one making that connection, but
no, I don't think you are, man. I think you're picking up on something intuitively there, because Becca Tarnas. Have you ever talked to her?
No.
Massive Tolkien fan, probably one of the most amazing spiritual chicks you'll ever meet, right? But we talked about this when she was on the show. There is something that's magically intuitive about his stories. It's kind of like when you watch a movie or you read a story and it starts you don't know why you're so drawn to it. Well, why am I so drawn to it? Why is it igniting this nostalgia in me? Why is it making me feel this way? Because it's just like that movie, The Fifth Element. Anytime there are basic, like, natural alchemical principles and like really deep stuff that's connected to a deeper historical truth in any way, your soul will start to feel that stuff. That's why art is so awesome and creativity is so awesome, because it speaks that way. Right. I believe that.
No, I'm with you 100%. And for those who might not be as, intuitive or in the metaphysical side of things, here's like a little historical connection. So everybody who's familiar with Lord of the Rings knows the bad guy is Sauron, right? Well, in ancient Mesopotamia, I think it was, or somewhere between Mesopotamia and Rome's time, there was a guy by the name of Sargon who was the inventor of time in a way. Like, he invented the first, what we would call a clock. And it's interesting, in that linguistic way, words kind of change as they pass on to different languages and then languages evolve. But, you see that connection, and then you connect that to the Saturnian mythos, which is very much about time, chronos, chronology. I mean, the word that we use, chronicle, these are all terms that, have a meaning. They rhyme in that esoteric way. And when you're, like you said, in touch with your higher self or in touch with your soul sort of rings like a bell when you see it on a page or you hear someone say it, and these things stick with you. And that was kind of the case for me and Crowley, and like his work kind of came to me in certain ways in my life. And then speaking all about it on that episode of Tinfoil Hat kind of like got it off my chest in a way, because I was able to like share what I felt about him and then like move on.
I was going to go down that road because I remember talking to you before I talked to Sam, and I was like, should I go down that road with him or not? Because I agree with him. Like, I don't like Aleister Crowley. Okay. But that doesn't mean you're going to throw the baby out the bathwater. There's some terrible stuff in there, but and he considered himself a prophet, right? But if you think about all the people that considered themselves prophets, even biblical, they were all assholes. All of it. There's not one prophet that wasn't an asshole. And I mean in the worst way. Some of them were murderers. Some of them were like conquerors. We're talking about Genghis Khan type people. Some of them were just diabolically screwed up that like to do bad things. Some of them like to sleep with tons of women, probably started this whole STD thing we got on the planet. But they were all prophets. There was always some kind of conversion that they did in their life and then ended up prophetizing all this stuff. And you'll hear, I'll laugh every time I hear people speak profited verses out of the Bible. I'm talking about prophets, okay, that they considered themselves prophets and had no idea how big of assholes these guys were for the most part, So, yeah. Well, I guess my point is there's a lot of good information comes out the mouths of a lot of assholes, So,
yeah, and the reverse is also true. I mean, someone who I was just speaking to on my show, William Ramsey, he is an investigator and he likes to investigate cults and different things, and that was something that came up on his show. I think it was Keith Raniere. He was interviewing a guy who had been in a lawsuit with Keith Raniere for like a couple of years, like multiple years. He'd gone through this lawsuit with Keith Raniere, and it was interesting to hear like the psychological traits of someone like that. They're very, it's psychopathic. You hear that statistic about like the, high achieving people can be also psychopathic. Yeah. And then, the same is probably true for these folks who use spiritual knowledge to, take advantage of people. I don't want to, out this person, but I just went with my girlfriend to a sort of channeler who does like on a stage type of thing, and people come up and they ask her questions, and I gotta say, a lot of people just went up there and tried to jerk her off. They were just so excited to be in her presence, and that like turned us off. Me and my girlfriend, we kind of had a very sober look at it and weren't really tuned in the way.
Feel genuine, right?
No,
like
it felt, dude, it felt like we were getting like our energy drained, and a lot of people there were like devotees in a way. Like they were there because she was so great and she was going to solve all their problems, and I feel like that's the type of energy that a psychopath could easily play off if they read a couple of spiritual books. I mean, it's not that hard to let this stuff kind of seep into your unconscious. You just got to read and start getting into it. And it's like Crowley, like you mentioned, I thought you made an excellent point on Crowley. I don't know if it was on the show or if it was just when you and I were talking on the phone, but you said, Crowley, he let his will be the higher force rather than love. And like when you get into this stuff, love needs to be the higher power always. It needs to be on the top of the hierarchy, because like what I was saying, you need to give to other people, you need to give back. And I think loving others is really the foundation of becoming initiated or becoming ascended or getting in touch with your higher self. You have to have love for the rest of the world because we're so connected to it. That's how you get in touch with that energy.
And when you feel drained too, because after a while it gets tricky, right? Because after a while and I know you and I talked about this too, you could send all the love in the world to a person, to God, to everybody, right? But what happens at the end of the day if you feel drained? You see? To me, I think people have good intentions sometimes, right? Or they have intentions of, I guess, love and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, I don't know, if you don't feel charged or energized, I don't think it's that good, honestly, So imagine all the damage that Crowley did. Not just to himself, but to others, right? And in my opinion, taught a lot about this, the sexual magic stuff, all ass backwards. That's just my opinion, though.
Well, I think, his life and the results of, what he did is pretty evident. I mean, he ended up, maybe this was just characteristic of his time, but he ended up being, addicted to heroin and that opium book, the Diaries of a Drug Fiend. That's like his best-selling book, So if he's such a great magician, why is the best-selling book of his like the one where he talks about his opium issues? It's because like look at the world we're in right now, and I think he was a victim of that in some ways, and it was definitely a result of him feeding those negative urges and going into that dark side as a sort of career choice in a way. When you're a ceremonial magician, that's very
megalomania.
Yeah,
is what it is, right? Yeah. You start seeing that magic works, and you start seeing the power of it and how you can affect your world, and you know what, other people's worlds too, right? And then once you get that kind of power in your life, you say, well, I can pretty much do or say what I want, and I can screw with the public, make them think I'm the beast, sleep with anybody I want to, whatever. As long as I know how to contain my energy, I can do. And then the covert narcissism is even worse with his ego and stuff, right? So if you hurt Aleister Crowley, and this is something that really freaked me out about this dude, and anybody that has these traits freaks me out. So say I'm vulnerable to you. This is called covert narcissism of megalomaniacs, right? And I say, look, man, you know what scares me the most is when somebody does this or that, and it really hurts me. Right? It really hurts me, like on the deepest, most vulnerable level. And then I end up hurting your feelings one day. Well, you will covertly go do that thing that hurts me the most so you can feel the power of it. It doesn't sound that evil, right? I mean, but that is truly the evilest thing that happens on the planet.
Well,
and
and
take someone's most vulnerable part of themselves and you just smash the shit out of it.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, and look at Scientology, not to throw them under the bus, but L. Ron Hubbard was someone who was in touch with Aleister Crowley. And when you try to, when you get in touch with the Scientologists, what do? They ask you about your life, and then they test your, response, your I forget the proper term, your physio.
Constant test.
Your physio. Yeah, they're testing you, and they're getting that information. They're getting what your weak points are, or your psychological pitfalls that they can then take advantage of and have a more, whole control over you as a person. And that's why you see all those celebrities get involved with that, because they, those people for the most part live pretty rocky lives doing that type of work. And especially considering how many of them have the family connections to even get into that spot in the first place. Crowley's no different, and he liked to roll in those circles too. I mean, that was a big part of the whole Hollywood influence was Crowley's magic. I mean, that movie Lucifer Rising, and now we have like all these Satanists apparently in Hollywood. And, I don't want to say that stuff's not true, because I don't know, but I definitely think that it could be
true, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you study this stuff like deeply and you listen to what people like, well, you can listen to Anton LaVey all day long. But Mark Passio's been putting out stuff for years, man. Like, if you don't know who Passio is, people are like, oh, you heard of Mark Passio? Yeah, dude, I listened to him like 12 years ago, right? So this dude's been around pushing this message passionately for years. And these people do this stuff. They do this stuff, and they don't even have to hide it. There's a lot of shows out there, well, they're hiding this, and they don't hide it. They do it out in the open.
Right.
They do it out in the open. They don't have to hide this stuff. And I mean, that's the kind of beauty of, I would say, magic as a whole. If you understand it and you're well versed in it, you can do it out in the open. You don't have to hide it. You can claim it, whatever, and it's still going to work on the people that live in fear and weakness. That's what it preys upon, man. Your vulnerability is your fear and your weakness.
Yeah, yeah.
I am what you want. I am what you need. What else is it? You're not enough. This isn't enough. You need this. Now you need this. You got that. Now you need this, right? And the music is constantly just music. Hollywood movies is fading the symbolism into you blatantly. But then there's other movies, in my opinion, like The Fifth Element. I can go on. There's probably 10. I know off the top of my head, where the people that wrote these movies, it's almost like there's this spiritual war going on. They're putting out another message, right? They're like, no. Let me show you how powerful love is. And I even seen this on, what was it? YouTube today. I was watching a YouTube video, and it was really crazy about covert narcissism. It kind of made my stomach turn, right? Thinking about it a little bit. But then there was these comments below the video, and you could see the fear in people. They're like, fear is the biggest power. Fear has it's way more powerful than love and blah, blah. No, it's not. It's faster, more intense, and more life-crushing, but it's not more powerful, for sure.
Yeah, and look what they push on people: horror movies, action movies, violence, and all of it. Even comedy movies have plenty of violence. And it's like, yeah, they're clearly creating an energy with that. And yeah, man, I mean, I can get into some of the stuff I've learned recently, in light of that experience I had at that channeling event. They were channeling a, being from the Arcturians.
Where the hell did y'all go, man? Where did you go?
Long Island, New York. I don't want to talk about this person. I
mean, like, I don't want to get your girl mad at you or anything, too.
Well, no, we're in sync on this for sure. But she, cool. We definitely, have our opinion about her, but we respect her. She's into spiritual ideas, and if that's how she makes a business, by getting people in with that and then kind of playing this, like, it felt like a stage show, like a magician was up there.
It didn't feel good to you, did it?
Yeah, and it had that other level, and I'm like, well, who are the Arcturians? What are they all about? And like, what, how does that affect us? And the biggest hypocritical thing about the whole thing is she's like, she was somewhat anti-mask, vaguely anti-mask, anti-jab, but then she's selling masks with her artwork on it. It's like you're selling merch with it's like, come on, what is this? So yeah, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but people figure it out.
On it. It lasted about a week though,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I felt like, why not? But I wanted to put something on the mask that was funny. And I swear the first time I thought about it too, I was like, why don't we just like put like see-through panties and just sell them as masks, right? It's basically the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I understand why,
or whatever, some see-through underwear. Like,
yeah,
sell them as masks.
No, I understand why, like, the Grimerica show guys, they sold some masks that said like, this is bullshit. And like, there was a lot of people in a country like Canada and Australia where, they had to wear it. So yeah, give them one that says this is bullshit. That's awesome. I had to wear a mask when I went to a grocery store. So I'm not trying to pretend like I didn't have to go through it, but I just felt like, it's summertime. Nobody in the theater barely was wearing them. So I'm like, why are they selling them? But yeah, enough about this lady. I think people are probably like, feel like we're cucking them a little bit on the whole Tolkien Box Saga thing. We kind of switched gears real quick.
Well, the point is the reason why I like your show and what you're talking about is too, before we go back to Tolkien, is that, it's really important that you stay true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We can slide off of who we are and be pulled off of who we are in all different directions, but I think that happens for a reason. I think it happens to strengthen who you are, not to weaken who you are. I think things happen for you, not against you, right? So the title of your podcast makes me want to listen to it, because whose family doesn't think they're crazy? And how many people out there are scared to be themselves, even as adults? It baffles me how many 40-year-old adults let their parents influence them. I'm not playing and I don't know I sound judgy, but I don't care. You're 40 years old, right? And you're still afraid to be yourself around your parents. Your parents could say whatever they want, but they're just trying to validate their shit. That's all they're doing. And the second you don't care anymore, they may give you a few weeks of kickback, but then they're gonna be like, all right, well, my kid's an adult. I don't even do it to my kid that much. So I think there needs to be more of the same message of what you're doing. Like, let's talk about whatever. This is what I believe. Hell, I'll change my beliefs. I'm a person, but I'm just going to be me, right? And my family still thinks I'm crazy, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, for me, it was like 10 years ago, I started smoking pot. That was probably the first indication that I was a little different. But I'd always been a reader, and I would even because my relatives live pretty far away. So every holiday we'd go for a long drive, and I would bring books and read, and read on the way there. And the books I would bring to my aunt's house, like I could see one of them right now, the Jade Emperor's Mind Seal Classic, like all about Chinese alchemy. And then I probably brought Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, and then Secret Teachings for Beginners, and all kinds of, these are the books I was reading when I was 17, 16. So my family's always thought I was crazy, but I appreciate you saying that, because you're absolutely right. I think as soon as I owned it, something shifted in my life. Because before that, it was what it was, and I kind of owned it in a way. But for the most part, a lot of my friends were still kind of like, yeah, dude, I don't see what you're talking about there. I don't see why you're listening to all this stuff, reading all these books, And that was disheartening, So, and when I put it out on a podcast, I noticed that changed. People were starting to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give it a listen. I'll check this out. It seems like you're doing big stuff. And then what really changed it, because I didn't have the podcast until after I started working for Sam, and I had a YouTube kind of show. And Sam was like, well, what are you doing, buddy? You got to have your own podcast. Come on now, kind of encouraging me.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, you're right. I do have this show. And I remember the first time I was on his show, it was his premium content show, and he was like, what's the name of your podcast? And I explained it to him, and he's like, listen, if you have to explain the name of your podcast, it's not a good name for a show. And I'm like, fuck, you're right. So one day
I have to do that all the time. So, and I'm not changing the name of my show. So.
Well, that was Sam's opinion, and I took it to heart because, you know, how many people, you know, meet your heroes, and I took it to heart, and I remember like the week I found out that Sam needed me to work for him and that it was a real thing, it wasn't just like some Hollywood guy jerking me around. I told my family about it, like my aunts and cousins and stuff like that, not just like my mom and dad. I'm like, oh, this guy, you know, Sam Tripoli.
For you, right?
Yeah, I was so happy, you know, and they were all just kind of like, who the hell's Sam Tripoli? Like they're not into comedy, so like they're not gonna know like a comedian, even though he's a very well known comedian in the respect of other comedians, especially. But you know,
it's good to be proud of, man. You know why? Because when you grew up, there's all this thing about. It's kind of like you can tell that the children in school that don't get a lot of love or attention in their homes, or bad attention, right? Because the first time you have to and some people are shy. I get that. We all have a certain amount of shyness, but there is a fear you have to get over, right? And the first time they say, Joe, you know, or Mark, can you stand up in front of the class and read your homework? You're like, oh no, you know, and you get that gut feeling, right? But after a while, you can tell the mama's boys that have the mom that's like, oh, you're so wonderful, you're so special. Dude, they run straight up to the front of the room every time, right? You see what I mean? So the people that don't get the right kind of love and attention as kids, they grow up and they don't feel validated ever. And then they don't feel good enough and shy. And it's like a bad combination, right? It's bad when somebody calls on you and says, hey, stand up here. It's your turn to get attention, and their stomach turns, right? That's trauma.
Yeah.
It's not good for a kid. They should be like, yeah, it's my turn, you know?
You're describing me. Yeah.
You know, Sam is like your hero. Would be awesome if your family was like, that's so freaking cool, right? But they're not doing that because they don't understand you.
Well, and I think they understand me, but I think that in a way they're just like, you know, why are you interested in all these things? Like, you seem smarter than this. Because to them, like, these subjects and interests, they don't seem fruitful. They just seem like, you know, hobby thing, like philosophy, you know, or whatever it is. Like, they're like, you know, oh, you should be getting like a, you know, some kind of job with a college degree. That kind of bullshit. Yeah, that kind of bullshit, dude, you know? And I was definitely that shy kid, especially like, you pointed out at the beginning, being so tall. It's like weird to be like that kind of odd one out, because people kind of look up to you, but they also want to kind of challenge you because they want to take out the big guy, you know. So that was why I got into martial arts and stuff. And then I kind of got confident. I had jobs where I had to.
You're tall.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I got chopped down a couple times. That's why I got into martial arts. But you know, having jobs that pushed me past my social boundaries were huge for me. Like, I had a job where I had to go door to door and canvas, you know, so I had to get really good at talking to people through that job. And then I had a job at the farmer's market where I'm talking to like 1,000 people in a day, or it seemed like, you know what I mean? And remembering people's names and keeping like a consistent customer relationship and basis going. So these are all skills that I think, in a intuitive synchro mystic kind of way, you know, culminated into this opportunity that Sam gave me to have my own show. And I had already been obsessed with podcasts, and like your show and Grimerica's show, the Higher Side Chats, all these different podcasts I had listened to, and, you know, delivering bread. I specifically picked that job. I'm like, I'm going to be a delivery guy, because then I could just listen to stuff and get paid, you know? And like, it was literally like, you know, getting paid to go to school instead of paying to go to school. And I think that was huge for me. And then, so, you know, to explain all that to my family, who I only see a couple times a year, they don't get that. So when I told them, oh, I'm going to work for this guy and he lives in California, they're kind of like scratching their head like, what?
How does that happen?
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah. So I kicked myself in the ass and I'm like, all right, that's the name of my show. My family thinks I'm crazy. It kind of just like hit me over the head that evening.
Did you get a little adrenaline rush when you realized it?
Yeah, I was driving. I probably hit the gas a little harder, and I was like, "Yeah, this is. I'm rocking with this."
Podcast name. I got my podcast name. Like a little kid, didn't you?
Yeah, well, dude, now I love it. I mean, I have 2 other shows now, so I feel like I've been just naming all kinds of things.
I think it's a good thing to do for anybody, and you get all kind of, and we got to take a break here, but you get all kinds of. You understand that, and you're probably starting to experience this now yourself. But once you start doing enough episodes, you start to inspire people, right? And people that really want to do this stuff deep down, they will come at you in a positive way, or they'll come at you in a negative way. Well, you don't think I can do it? Or they'll be like, wow, how do you do that? But deep down, you can see that, they want to do it. So like, I really recommend a podcast, and I know Joe Rogan used to say this stuff all the time, for anybody that's trying to break into the creative content realm. One, because you don't have to get on video. You can always hide behind the microphone if you want, and you can just post it. And then if you keep doing it, you're going to find your tribe. So I think anybody out there that's like, hey, where are my people? Like, I want to find my people, right? Do your show. You'll find them.
Right. They'll come to you,
guaranteed.
Synchronistically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I started Alt Media United with the podcast cooperative, because people were hitting me up, and someone we both know, Alex, Skeptico Podcast, he's someone that I was building with at that time, and we created it together. And what I took with that opportunity was like, let me make something that encourages people to do that and supports people to do that, because I've found so much value personally in it.
FM.
Right on.
We should talk about that too after the break, man, for real.
Cool.
We're going to get back on this token stuff, and if you guys want to call in, it's 1-800-588-0335. Also join our Discord chat. More Lighting the Void coming up.
Right on.
It's time to hotbox a cigarette. All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. Mark Steves from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast is here with us. So we talked about a lot of Magic Crowley, Tolkien, be yourself kind of stuff. Pretty cool coming through the harvest moon, Look, I'm going to tell you guys this, and I'll tell it to you over and over again. Tap into love, right? So, we were talking about moon magic last night with Anthony, and I forgot to bring that up, man. Right? So, if this is a hard subject to bring up because it's touchy, but people want to understand how magic works. If you want to understand how magic works, if you have somebody in your life that you truly love, right? I'm not talking about attracted to, you got a crush on, whatever. I'm talking about love. Well, we'll get into that, but you can really use the moons, right, together. Because essentially the most powerful thing in the universe, in my opinion, not that it matters, but it does to me, is the co-creative force. Mm-hmm. All right. And if you're alone, all you have to do is make love to the universe. You know what I mean? Find somewhere in nature. Find some trees. If you're a man, find a beach. If you're a woman, get around some masculine energy. If you're alone, right? Go find a place that has that masculine feel to it, a little bit of fire, and then, work the energy in yourself. I'm going to get into all that with the member stuff, but, oh, dude, you'll go through hell. Don't get me wrong. Like when you start transmutating this shit, but at the end of it, it's going to be awesome for sure.
I'll tell you what, you and I met before I got into this awesome relationship that I'm in, and I can certainly say I love the person I'm with. So, but one thing that my girlfriend and I started since we've been together is this new kind of offshoot podcast that we're doing together called the Synchro Mystic Exploration of the Ever Expanding Now. And one of the first things that really inspired this was the 13 moon 28 day calendar, and getting away from this artificial calendar that was created and into the natural harmony, you know, and yeah, it's really amazing what's already taken place since we've kind of done this together. But I wonder,
don't like, are you going to, I'm going to tell you something that I've learned. All right. I know you're going to talk about your podcast, but the thing that you guys share together, like seriously, I'm telling you this for magical reasons. All right. Not for, it's weird. Don't talk about it. But what I'm saying is, it's like, don't talk about it. Keep it between you two, because it'll be way, way, way more powerful that way. Right. I promise you. Because it's just going to be you and her energy. Right. And then is y'all's podcast out yet?
Well, yeah, we put the Synchro Mystic Exploration of the Ever Expanding Now. Sorry, that's a mouthful.
Nice name.
Scene, aka Scene. We put the scene on my Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast RSS. So it's all in one place. But the difference with Scene is that if you want the whole episode, go over to the Patreon, you get the whole episode. So sort of like a members thing. Right now we're working with the Patreon, but we only have a small group of people right now, and I'm thinking about making something that's endogenous to the website so that we could get away from Patreon altogether. But that's a different conversation. I completely understand what you're talking about. And I think, you know, one superstition that I'd always had is like, oh, when I talk about relationships, the relationship always goes to shit, you know? Like, I think I even told you this when we were first talking, like, oh, I have this superstition that, like, when I like a girl and then I go and express it to someone, like, the next date goes to shit, you know? And
you got to get those formulas out of your head. I do that to myself too, man.
Right. But, you know,
the second I open all the way up to them, right, they just take off. And that's based on your experience. So it creates a fear, and then you create a program and a formula in your head too.
Well, but as that relates to your point, though, about keeping the magic between her and I feel like that wasn't the case with her, where, like, you know, when I expressed, you know, my love and gratitude for her, even before we were like a thing, a unit, a partnership, you know, it didn't jinx it in the way it had in the past. And I think that's because before then it hadn't been true, you know, and for the first time it was, I was making a true statement or a true expression of love and joy. And, you know, our whole coming together was very synchronistic. I knew her for a couple of years before we actually went out on like a serious date. And yeah, it was first. Yeah, it was, well, yeah, in a way. And it was, you know, all at the beginning of this year, and then onward from there through the summer, you know, we've been living together, and it's definitely magical. But I am really, I appreciate that warning, because I think that's something that maybe I had been a little too cavalier about.
Bro. Yeah, you've got to keep like that stuff between y'all two. I mean, I've learned this the hardest way, and have had some deep pain in my life from allowing other people to get involved with things they shouldn't get involved with. You know, like that type of just my opinion too, but like romantic love is something that's on a different level, right? It's something that you should protect and take care of. And there's a true mystical power to it as well, I believe. And it's part of the mysteries. It's not just something that's in a movie or in a book. It's an actual part of the mysteries. It's here for a purpose, you know? And once other people's energies gets involved, it causes problems. I'm not saying like don't go out, don't do a podcast, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
There are things that have to stay between you in person, because it's beautiful when you can open up emotionally to somebody like that also, and not just have them like use it against you and crush you, right? Or for instance, that's what the whole nakedness myth story and archetype is about. When you're naked, or you do certain things, I guess you could say sexually or whatever, there's an embarrassment. You don't do that stuff for the public unless you're just a maniac, right? But it's basically another person accepting all of you, right? And that's a sacred thing that you should keep, in my opinion. right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I haven't broke that in my life. I have, but I've learned this not by reading books, but from the experience of the beautiful sides of this and the experience of the most painful sides of this in my life. I've learned the truth about that. So it's not a truth that society wants to teach for sure. And it's damn sure not a truth that Crowley taught, because these kind of guys that talk a lot of left-hand path stuff, they do everything based on the mind and logic. Most left-hand path stuff does that. It's usually fire, passion, logic, mind. Fire, passion, logic, mind, which is extremely attractive to the feminine energy. But it causes destruction if you stay there, because it's imbalanced at the same time. Right. You have to bring the openness, the vulnerability, the emotion, the Empress energy into it too as well to balance it out, That whole tree thing is amazing, by the way. It's like there's so much to learn in there. It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing that again. Cause I think, one of the goals that we had with this new show, The Scene, was to give people the kind of tools that we've used to change our lives for the better, and
well, that's awesome.
And I think, in that way we described before the break with like, whatever you put out comes back to you threefold. That might not be, everything you want it to be, in the sense that, like, yeah, there are people who might listen to even this show and think like something and send some kind of energy my way. And, I think that's like one of the dangers that we face being broadcasters in any shape or form, is like, yeah, you do put yourself out there for anybody's energy to kind of come your way. So I think, one of the things that I like to do is just take things not so seriously and be silly and have fun and like do things
yourself on the sly.
Yeah. And also, take it from like a neutral stance too. Like, I don't want to make my show all about Crowley, even though that's a fascination of mine, I just take a neutral stance on that and let certain guests come on and talk about it if they have something to say about it, and I find that a lot more fruitful than going on someone's show like Sam and with tinfoil hat talking about Crowley. You should see the YouTube comments for that. It's a good thing that channel got taken down. I was not behind that at all, but like, it definitely benefited me, because some of those comments were like mean, man, and that's fine. But you kind of attract that energy when you talk about someone as dark as Crowley, and I realized that when I did that with Sam, because I think like 100,000 people watched that on YouTube alone. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. I'm just a guy who has a bunch of books on Crowley and did like a month's worth of research on it, slapdash research compared to what most people put in who talk about Crowley. And I had a pretty big impact and brought some things to the light that some guys who go around the circuit talking about Crowley, they never touch on that stuff. They only talk about, the folk hero lore of Crowley and how he was a mountain climber and he did all these great things with magic, and it just didn't ring true to what I had read. So I wanted to put it out there. And from that experience, I realized, like, yeah, maybe be yourself, but have boundaries between yourself and the people who listen to the show, because I do get a lot of messages, and it is cool to inspire people, especially how small my show is right now. Like, it's cool the amount of people that hit me up and say, hey, I really love the show. But there is an energy of like, I can't be everybody's savior. You got to be your own savior, and you got to do shit for yourself. I can only hear so many people tell me like, hey, I want to start my own podcast, before I'm like, dude, like, just do it, because I could help you. If you want to be a part of my cooperative, that's great, but you got to do all those pieces first. Unless you're like an exceptionally interesting or busy person, and you can pay somebody to do it for you. You just got to do it yourself, and I think that's the part of the magic in creating something. And one of the awesome things about Tara and I getting together is that we can co-create a show together, and that's kind of what we've been incubating over the past few months, is like, what's our show going to look like? And I think Scene is a cool offshoot, but it might evolve into something totally new, and who knows what'll come next. But yeah, being very careful about how, guarded we are, boundaries, and also at the same time being honest, authentic, and transparent, and telling people how we feel. But yeah, man, I understand why people go and put up these like membership communities, because it's like, you don't want to just spill your heart out to anybody. It's nice to have like people who support you, and you can like have a more direct relationship with those folks, and then be a little more guarded on your free show. So I think that's the direction I'm taking my shows.
Well,
and
I think you also gotta value what you do too, right? You can't let other people devalue what you do because they have some type of ethical issue with you doing what you love for a living, right? So that's not your problem, right? Like if they don't value what you do, then they are, in my opinion, energy vampires, right? Because everybody thinks that you owe them free everything. That's just like life. Like you're not entitled to become a rich person. The life doesn't owe you success. Right. It doesn't owe you anything. So if somebody gives you something for free, you should value it, especially their time. That's the most valuable thing that you have is time. So let's see. We got a phone caller. Right. Is one of your buddies calling in to crash the party or what? I can almost maybe. Well, we don't know yet. Let's see. 847 area code. Who are we speaking with? Hold on a second. It's Adam. Yeah. Hold on a second, Adam. Let me get you on the air. I got you on the wrong. Now you're on the air. What's up, buddy?
Hey, dude, I'm tired of these blood-sucking these blood-sucking freaking vampires.
Which ones?
They suck at my energy, taking it dry, and they ain't even let me, ain't giving nothing back.
Which ones? Who are you talking about? You got sirens on you, man? Or are you talking about the government? You talking about the corporations? What are we talking about?
Nah, dude, just okay. People you be partying with, buy them drinks, you hook them up, and then the next day they act like they don't even know you.
Oh yeah, they're there for themselves, bro.
That sounds like the guy I was just talking about.
Yep.
So how are you doing, Joe?
I'm good, man. This is Adam. He'll call in. He's just getting into the conversation so he can relate, but he's got a story to tell for sure. How you been, brother?
Oh man, I've been grand. It was my birthday the other day.
Happy birthday.
September 18th. Heck yeah, I'm 33, brother.
Nice.
Wow.
Big shout out to Chuck Deluxe too. We just missed Chuck's birthday too, so it was the other day. But so you survived.
Oh, happy birthday! Oh good, Chuck.
You survived your birthday, Adam. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Hey, brother, I'm a mingler. So I'm sitting there doing my birthday thing, and my niece's, it's her birthday. And they got all right, so they're younger, but you know what? They're above 18. So I'm like, hey, girl, what's going on? I'm being a retard, weirdo, creepy uncle, whatever. So then I'm mingling. We're going to the pool. It's the Holiday Inn right here in Elgin.
Right.
So I'm sitting there hanging out, having a good time. And, dude, I'm a people person. So I meet this guy, and right away he shares his bottle of SoCo with me. So we're sitting there drinking, mingling. Gave me a couple cigarettes. It was cool. And then freaking, you know what it turned out to. You know what it turned out to be, dude.
Well,
I'm like, hey, bro, I can make a phone call. He's like, yeah. So I make my phone call. And dude, you know what I'm doing? Tweaking and geeking, shaking and baking, dude. So
you broke out the white powder, didn't you? Yeah, I told you to stop doing that.
I can't resist. Brother, dude, life is good. And
why do you always give in to the devil?
God is, no. Well, why does it have to be the devil, though? I mean, God is like, I don't know what God is. I'm not sure what it is, but he's blessed me with the ability to
do drugs,
social, be able to communicate, be able to feel people. Because, dude, I feel something different.
So what are we talking?
People.
Are we
Most
talking?
People be like, hey, dude, this guy is a spanker chick. He's dark. Don't talk to him. But I'll be like, hey, dude, this guy's, just hanging on a leaf.
I think Adam. I think cocaine does that to people, though. It makes you a little bit more social, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I mean, that's why the drug flourished in the 70s and It made a lot of shy people feel good and sociable. You know?
What was your heyday?
Oh, early 20s. Early 20s for sure. I was
No. I mean the era, like 70s, 80s.
Early 90s.
Oh, I thought you meant the 1920s.
Mid to late 90s.
Okay. Okay, so then, see, I still like got memories. You know, as a child, we were partying. Well, not we, but like my mother would be partying and stuff. So like early 90s, I remember like the Offspring Smash album. Like they had like 5 copies of that. So what was going on in the late 90s?
Lots of partying, lots of cool music. A little bit mixed in with a little bit of depression, but depression was cool back then, you know?
Yeah, but wasn't that early 90s or no?
That was all the way through the 90s, man. You know, depression was a cool thing. Hating life and depression was a cool thing in the 90s for sure.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So
brother Joe, I just want to call. I want to give my love. Hey, dude.
You got a question for our guest, for Mark?
Oh, Mark.
Hi.
Mark, what is your last name?
Out of what? Out of the 2 choices that you have there, Palmer or Steves?
I call him Mark Steves.
Steves. I actually go by Captain Steves.
Captain Steves.
Yeah, back when I was a wrestler.
Hey, bullshit. You were not a wrestler.
I was the captain of my team. A high school team, not college.
Dude's like 7 foot tall, man. He's the perfect wrestling size.
Oh, dude. Well, like, carry me on your shoulders. I'm like only like 5'8".
Did you? I got a question for
5'10" on my tippy toes.
You got a question for Adam?
Yeah. Did you say you were in Elgin?
Yes, Elgin, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
61120, baby.
Because that's somewhat of a synchronicity.
Right from the Grand Victoria Casino.
I was just reading about the Georgia Guidestones, and those are in Elgin County, Georgia. So when you said Elgin, I was like, oh shit, I gotta ask him about this.
Dude, the synchronicity.
Adam, you got to stop drunk dialing the station at night, man. I can't tell what you're saying sometimes.
Sorry. Mike, you hear me though?
Mark, he can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to ruin your.
Oh, you're not.
Vibes.
You're not. I appreciate you calling in and saying hi, brother.
Hell yeah. Ain't nothing wrong with sharing some love.
That's right.
I don't care if she's my cousin or not. I'm knocking them boots tonight. You know what I mean?
Just spoken like a true Arkansan, right? What's up?
Oh, man. Like I'm telling you. Hey, brother, let me tell you something right now. So I'm wearing my work pants, and I got the top. So they're button-up pants. You know, like the Cintas. Cintas, the company that makes the dress uniforms for work. CINTAS. So the button broke off. So these are old pants when I was still doing plumbing. And the button ripped off, but I got a piece of tape on the top. And then I got a piece of, and then I made it into a string, yanked it through the hole, tied it up. I'm like, dude, I'm still wearing these to work. I'm like, hell yeah.
That's good, bro. You keep on doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah. Oh, brother, dude. The only thing I find anything worth spending anything on nowadays is like things that bring more knowledge. And I don't know if you've gotten my messages. I'm trying to become an avoid walker because I'm trying to avoid walking.
You hadn't figured out how to become a member yet?
Dude, I'm freaking dude, I just lost. I'm texting Ryan right now to try to get my login password because I just bought in September the 5th. I renewed my subscription. I'm a retard, but I'm trying to help you guys out. I swear to God, Illinois, I'm trying to spread the freaking word. I've already ordered 4 of his books. Twice I've been a subscriber, bro. And then I don't want to do the Patreon because I'm not going to make a radio show. I think it'd be cool if I just call in, just be like, hey, once in a while, hello. Because there's like the things where he's like, hey, I'll give you a guest spot or I'll say hi or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then then they got like the 30-minute phone call. I'm like, holy shoot, this is like a prostitute. I can pay her $50 and I get 30 minutes of your time, baby.
Well, listen, I'll get back to you. All right.
I don't know.
We'll figure this out. I'll get back to you though.
Hey, Friday is payday. So hit me up Friday because that's the best day to hit me up.
All right. Will do.
Hell yeah. Because, dude, I'm tired of sitting there spending my money. Well, I mean, dope is cool. But now, dude,
dope is
I ain't
whack.
got no dope for.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember my first time. You be whacking yourself off, bro.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll listen. I gotta, respect the guest that's here with us, but I'm definitely going to.
Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, Mark's here.
Mark, sorry.
So I'm gonna give you a shout Friday for sure, bro.
Yes, and let me know. Well, I'm pretty sure. Well, I've sent you emails. I've called you.
Next caller.
Yeah.
Next caller. All right, sorry guys.
What's going on? I'll get in touch with you, brother. Thanks, bro.
All right, brother. Bye.
Adam, he's crazy, man. That guy called in one night and told me the funniest story. That's probably going to be on the classics of Lighting the Void for sure.
All right.
Like he was talking about his whole love journey and how he was going across the country. I like when he calls in. So, anyways, thanks for calling, Adam. Yeah, so we got all types that listen. You never know who's listening, right? It could be a truck driver. It could be some dude that's, on the verge of killing himself. It could be another person having a good time doing cocaine. It could just be a normal person, right? So we're all just people. Anyways, he always throws me off. I think he does it on purpose. But so back to this Tolkien thing, Mark. You gotta give me the download on this.
Yeah.
How did you? So tell me your journey with this, because I know we cut it off, and I didn't want to do that.
No, it's all right. So it connects in a way because I was listening to this Mysterious Universe episode, which I encourage people to go check out so they can get it themselves. But, I'm listening. I'm like, this is reminding me of the Box Saga, because they're talking about Finland and Scandinavia being the places where these textbooks, these old books that, Tolkien was reading that inspired him. And then Tolkien, people were, I guess, his contemporaries were saying, oh, this is such great fiction, blah, blah, blah. And he would always tell people, no, this is not fiction. This is real. These are real stories. And he stuck by that. And I think that, his message of like the Hobbit, being as small as they are and, this invisible force that helps them, defeat the ultimate evil. I think that's like the, hero's journey sort of archetype. But it's interesting because then you look at like all these stories of pygmies and giants and different types of humanoid people that walked the earth that were not what we would consider human, but still, human-like. And then that's what this Tolkien book is all about, The Lord of the Rings. And then, the ring being technology and man coveting it. And now, one of the points they made on the show was we're encircled by the ring now. I mean, technology is how we communicate with each other, and you can see that like addiction in the character of, what's his name? Smeagol, and how he has almost like that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing going on.
That's the devil card, bro. Mm-hmm. That whole thing represents the archetypal devil card. And also a lot of people talk about the archetypes of Saturn or Saturn. Saturn gets a bad rap, right? Like Saturn, the power of Saturn in the ring, the rule maker, the word no, boundaries, things like that. That's what Saturn's good for. But any one of these planetary energies or energies on the tree can be used in a bad way. Even the good ones like mercy and love and all that. You could use all this stuff to a detriment if it's unbalanced, right? But Saturn is the one at the top, along with Chokma, right? So there's this power that just moves and just bows over everything, which is Chokma. And then Saturn makes all the rules, right? Mm-hmm. Does everything brick by brick, step by step. It's super safe, but it's also super karmic too. And it also has like the archetype of, I would say that fear is a soldier of Saturn, like the general of Saturn, so to speak.
Now,
okay, so it's pretty crazy to get into, actually.
Well, my question is, how much have you looked into like the Saturn mythos that talks about, like, I mean, maybe it's not mythos, it's what's that book? David Talbot, I think, is the author, but he writes about how Saturn used to be this sort of position in the sky, whatever its solar nature was. It was kind of in this what's called a Birkeland current, and it held all the planets in this sort of gravitational pull, so they would all sort of ellipse in one formation. And from Earth's perspective, it looked like a stairway to heaven, maybe, or another analogy.
I need to read that.
Or even like the tree of life. You can look at it like that. You see all these different spheres in the sky, and Saturn, I guess, supernovaed and exploded, creating Jupiter, and you know, it used to be somewhat of like a twilight sun. And it's interesting, you know, this topic I've talked about on my show, My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, a bunch. Ari Oslin is one guy who really blew my mind on this topic. He came on the show twice, and obviously David Talbot inspired him, and there's others. But this whole electric universe that we're living in, you know, it just seems like that would be the case. And then you consider like animals and how a lot of them seem to be active during twilight, right? Sunrise and sunset. I mean, that's pretty for a lot of species of animals. I wonder if there's a correlation there to this time when Saturn had this purple, you know, effect on the sky, and maybe made what was daytime look like a dusk or haze or nighttime, even twilight. And you look in these like ancient like paintings, you see like the sky always looks like dark. In some of these, like, really, like, when they're trying to depict ancient times, they show like a sky that doesn't look like what we see today. It's often like almost sepia colored. Maybe that's just the painting materials that they had available.
Are you saying it has like the Saturnian vibe to it, so to speak?
Right.
You can see it.
I think that's what I'm getting at here. And then this is all just intuiting this kind of stuff, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show. But yeah, man, I think there's definitely a lot of truth to the whole electric universe model. And then from there, that holds a lot of the keys to what Saturn and Jupiter are and how they used to be in the sky. And, you know, I'm not someone who is in the flat earth camp necessarily, or in the like Neil deGrasse Tyson camp, you know, either. I just take all this stuff from like my perspective. But it's interesting, like when you get into the cosmology, how much layers of information there are. It would make sense that they would have something like a flat earth society to try to propagandize people from understanding that, you know, and thinking that space wasn't what we thought it was. And then in the reverse, you know, for the people who do just follow the leader, the sheep, you know, they give them this like watered down, you know, soulless version of what space is. And I think, you know, neither are true. It's somewhere in the middle.
You know, I think what you're saying is spot on, man. And here's the thing. Now, this is kind of why I tell everybody to study as much as they can about the planets. And when I say study, everybody always asks me too, brother, like, well, what book do I read on about the planets? What book do I read on? And it's like, you need to go experience the planets. All right. Now, I'm not saying don't read books on the planets and don't read books on the tree of life. Absolutely. Like, I get as much knowledge as you can from all that, but go experience them. And what I mean by that is, start with the moon. And this is what like the Golden Dawn started people out with when you were a neophyte. They'd make you track the moon, do all that stuff. And so you would start to notice the energies, right? You would start to notice the things that happen before you got into like messing with everything else, because you can it's one thing. And I really believe this in my whole heart, man. It's one thing to know something in your mind, but the biggest communicator and co-creative communication that you have with your higher self in the universe is experience. there's no more hardcore of a teacher than that. So when you learn something, then you have to go test it. And where do you test it? In this big place called life, right? That's what it's for. And I feel like that you're doing this co-creative stuff together. And anytime, dude, you know you're on to something, you'll start feeling the intuitive nostalgia from it, that you're on to something. And that's what I can tell you're doing right now is you need to keep chasing that thing that you're on to specifically. And then once you learn it with the universe, so to speak, then you can share it, right? And I think that art, especially like have you ever looked at like Renaissance art?
Yeah.
It definitely looks like it was meant to be scribed with, right? It wasn't meant to just look at it and go, oh, that's a nice piece. They put so much symbolism in the art, right? Yeah, so you got the Vault of Adepti. I like that. So he's showing me pictures, by the way, for y'all listening to audio. But when you look at Renaissance art, say, even the Mona Lisa, that was meant to be, you can tell that was meant to be focused on and scribed with the background, the image. Like, what is it telling you? What's this weird look with this Mona Lisa that looks kind of like a manly woman, right? So it's the blend of the masculine and feminine. And behind her is what? Heat and dryness. It shows like the whole alchemical thing behind her. And when you get deeper into this stuff, you'll start saying, oh, damn, like they were teaching us through their art, right? You could sit in front of them things forever. It's the same thing with the tarot cards. When they made them when they first made the Rider-Waite deck in the Golden Dawn, they designed these things so you could sit in front of them and like really scry with them, not just use them to divine,
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to how I got into this all in the first place. I mean, I was somebody who's like a college dropout, community college. I made the choice easy choice to go to like a community college because I wasn't really sure, other than anthropology, what I was interested in. So I went there just for that and realized pretty quickly that the books that I had bought on my own were way more interesting than anything I was learning in that community college. And the people I had met in between classes, just roaming around New Haven, were way more, of a mentor than anybody who had been working in that community college. So I had just, in a really profound way, stumbled into all this stuff. And didn't really realize it. Like, I was taking an art history class while I was also reading The Secret History of the World by Mark Booth, and that book is full of pictures. It's super interesting. It's very illustrated. Another book specifically on that is this book by Aleister Crowley called Alchemy and Mysticism, and all it is, it just takes you through exactly what Joe was just describing, the symbolism and all of these different pieces of art. And I think, in a sort of subconscious way, those have an imprint on you. And then, that creates the sort of subconscious fodder that pushes you forward. And, when you mentioned, people asking you, well, what book do I read? I know you weren't really making this point, but what I would want to say to that is like, don't ask somebody what book to read. Ask yourself. And the only place to ask yourself is like in a bookstore. Go to a used bookstore and just stand in the aisles and see what book jumps out to you. And you're going to start to find pieces of information. It might not be that exact book you get first, but it's all going to connect at some point. And like, I'm addicted, dude. You can see on the video, like I got so many books, man. I mean, I go on Amazon and I get stuff ordered to my house, and I hope, one of my goals for my podcast is that one day authors will send me their books so then I could, just get them for free and then give them something in return,
That should be happening already. So
I appreciate that.
Talk later, and I can tell you how to get that to happen.
And
my old producer Pacho, I used to tell him, I'm like, listen, if they want to send a book, you take it because I don't have the money to pay you, right? So take the books. And he took a bunch of books, man. So you could get books from them. But what you just said earlier too is pretty fascinating to me because the first book that got me started on my journey was Conversations with God. Right. And that's not even an occult book, but it opened the doors to everything for me. And I was in Hastings. I don't know if anybody knows about those stores, but they used to have bookstore called Hastings, and I literally fell on the floor in front of me when I was in like because I would always, it was my first time I'd ever looked at the kind of mystic section or whatever, and I felt kind of weird because I grew up Christian, like I felt, oh, this is the weird stuff, tarot, what's that, and blah, 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 you know, and this book just hit the floor, Conversations with God, book 1. And when I read it, it literally changed my life. I was living in Little Rock with my buddy Luke, and I was trying to tell him about all this stuff. And he's like, he's a big Christian, but it was blowing his mind too. And he's like, I don't know what to say to all this. And he's like, but it makes me feel weird. So you do your thing. And I was like, all right. And that's what got started me on my journey. It was that book, actually. That just, you know, I didn't go say, hey, what book should I read? It just popped out, and I'm like, wait, some guy said he talked to God?
Yeah.
You know, I want to read that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, there were many books that I was reading when I was a kid, but it was all like the kind of standard stuff and like nature, military stuff. So I was kind of all over the place, but I liked reading. And then it was Carlos Castaneda's, Don Juan teachings.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
that's a good one.
That book, in conjunction with this friend who had shown me or given me The Vortex by Esther Hicks, which was like out of left field for me. And I really took that whole book and all that stuff to heart and kind of found my own way through the law of attraction over the past 10 years. But, you know, I think bibliomancy, you know, is a real thing. And that book Carlos Castaneda wrote had a huge impression on everything else I read, because even before that was probably like The Dragons of Eden or something by Carl Sagan, I think, and I didn't even read that book. I just liked the cover and I kind of flipped through it, but I was like, what is this about Dragons of Eden, you know? And then that kind of broke through to be like, how strange can these books get? And I just kept looking and looking, cool. You know, and The Secret History of the World gave me like a backbone of where to look. Because that book, if for people who aren't familiar, he starts from, I think, Genesis and then goes through the spiritual history of the world. And it's really fascinating to see how, you know, what we would consider like an event that was just like, oh, political or whatever, had so many, everything had a spiritual event that preceded it. And all of these figures that we think of as like scientific or political, they had spiritual dimensions to their lives. And, you know, when we get this watered down version, go ahead.
Doesn't his book talk about how we had spiritual bodies that grew flesh, so to speak? We evolved into flesh bodies, I believe, if I remember that book.
Well, I think what you're touching on is the sort of alchemical perception of our different bodies, our esoteric bodies, the mineral, vegetable, animal, and then stellar body. And he talks about like it almost was like the planet was all gaseous, and like the beings on this planet had like almost an ethereal gas body. And this was like the beginning before Hyperborea, before Lemuria, before that, you know. And this is
so crazy that you say that, because Samael Aun-Weor talks about how we have, and I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, but how we have beings in our own solar system right now on these planets, but they're not. We don't perceive them as life because they're gaseous. They're different types of beings that we don't understand yet. So we got a caller here. Looks like 505 area code. You're on the air with Mark from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. Who are we speaking with?
This is Beaver. How's it going, y'all?
What's up, Beaver?
Not much. Do y'all know of Dr. Anthony Perrett and his plasma experiments?
Dr. Anthony Perrett and his plasma experience. I don't think so. I don't know.
No, haven't heard of it.
Kudos on and shout outs on you talking about the electric plasma universe. Dr. Anthony Perrett's work is pretty much all about that, and he makes a connection with petroglyphs and plasma discharges that they've done in labs, and they believe that it's a connection with the sun novae.
So Anthony L. Perrett is an American physicist whose most notable achievements have been in plasma discharge petroglyphs, plasma physics, nuclear fission, and the monitoring of nuclear weapons. That sounds like an interesting read, for sure. That guy. Yeah. Yeah, so he's actually done some deep laboratory work too. Well, that's pretty cool, man. Thanks for telling us about that.
That reminds me of
No problem.
Eric P. Dollard, who's been on Greg Carlwood's show a couple times, and yeah, that's definitely a huge fascination of mine. All these like characters who have these like fringe labs out in the periphery of science doing experiments that, you know, won't get published in these mainstream articles. But Beaver, I just wanted to point out that you have a very interesting name.
Yeah, he does.
I love it.
Right.
I wanted to point out like a spiritual aspect of a beaver. I'm looking in my animals book right now.
Didn't we talk about this the last time you called Beaver? I think with Mary.
Not on this, not in this aspect or angle. No.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I'll say that the beaver can teach you about stability, balance, tradition, true value, adaptability with the environment, healing, affection, tenacity, hard work, and self-reliance. So I don't know how much that means to you, but according to Sun Bear, that is the energy of the beaver.
Nice. I like beavers.
Dude, you got like an automatic nail hammer going right now or something?
No. In other words, you synchroed with him pretty hard, right? So,
well, let me ask you this to double the synchro.
Yeah, that was.
Let's see if we could double it. When's your birthday?
January 13th, 1986.
All right. Well, so that wouldn't be the beaver moon, but you were born under the, you said January what now?
13th.
Oh, the snow goose. You got the snow goose moon, brother, and the Native American zodiac. You're a snow goose.
What does it mean,
Cool.
Mark?
I'm gonna.
You can't just leave him with snow goose.
Oh, I'm gonna like look this up when we get off the phone.
Well,
Right,
you know, I don't want
to
to insult anybody because this is just Sun Bear. You know.
You too, bro. You're not insulting
Thank
anybody, Mark. We love you, man. You're good to go.
No, I know, but
I was born on April 1st. What is mine?
Ooh, let me tell you. Hold on, but just
I gotta find out.
Just
You're
so
get a bunch of callers now.
Oh God, do they all want me to tell them their animals?
Start, like, divining people's names and telling them their story, dude, they'll call in like crazy.
Well, he's a beaver, so that was awesome. I mean, shout out to Beaver, but yeah, if he wants to get more info on the snow goose, then he needs to go check out the Dancing with the Wheel, the Medicine Wheel Workbook by Sun Bear, Wabun Wind, and Chrysalis Mulligan. But yeah, some things about the snow goose. You can be a clear receiver and transmitter of universal energy. So these people born under the snow goose moon are great communicators. So that's awesome that he called in. Right on.
So, all right, what's mine? You got to tell me.
What's your birthday?
April the 1st.
Let's see. Let's see what they say. April the 1st. You are a Red Hawk, my friend. I love that. That's so cool. Red Hawk's a huge synchro for me, and actually the Grimerica show even, more so. Graham and I were just talking about that when he was on my show. But yeah, brother, you can teach people about the need for water, the emotions, and tempering their fiery energy. Wow, is that not spot on to what you said before about Cancer energy? I don't know if that was on the air or not, but yeah, wow, that's just one little thing out of this book. But people, it's also called the Budding Trees Moon. So it's not just the energy of the Red Hawk, but each moon has a different name, kind of seasonal name. And yeah, man, you got the energy of intensity, catalyzing change, fearlessness, and optimism. And you have leadership ability. You'll be shown the enormity of your own spirit and the extent of your clear-sightedness. You need to learn to channel your energies and contain your emotions and be more patient with others.
Oh yeah, that's definitely my stuff for real, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, we get out of here, dude. So, you know, Ryan Gable's coming on, man. We need to do this again at some point.
Yeah.
And I know this is super late night for you, but whatever. We need to talk again. So
Right on. I love this. This was a blast. And for all those listening, bless you. And wherever you are in the now, I mean, I usually say that on my podcast because you never know when people are going to listen to it. But I guess, you know, this is live. So let's all set our intentions to have a great Libra season. It's my birthday season. My birthday's coming up. So show me some love, support the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast, and check out all the awesome interviews we've done.
Plug away.
Thank you. Yeah, and we also have a new show that I just started with Michael Wan, who we did mention. It's called Your Handbook for the Apocalypse, and you can find that on his podcast feed called Susquehanna Alchemy. That's SUSQUEHANNA Alchemy. And he's got a YouTube channel, a lot of great content there already. And we're going to be doing a show every Wednesday called Your Handbook for the Apocalypse, where we get into a lot of the stuff we talked about here and much more.
All right, brother. This was one of the coolest conversations I've had in a while. So thanks for coming on.
Anytime.
Go check out the website. Go check out the podcast. My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. We'll be back tomorrow night with Jeff Harmon. Coming up next is Ryan Gable, The Secret Teachings. The show he's doing tonight is called Intelligent Evil Dust Bunnies. Sweet drink. Ryan's always killing it with those crazy titles.
Yeah, I can't imagine what the Dust Bunnies are up to.